Hello, everyone. Today we are talking to Jennie Yang. She's the founder of Chief Mama Officer. After having her second child, Jennie decided to take a leap of faith, leave her corporate career behind, and launch a community and resource for executive and founder new moms. We talk about following your dreams, the importance of community, what happens to your career when you make the jump from one kid to two, and much, much more. Thank you for listening. I'm Anthony Franzese, the host of the Successful Working Parents podcast, where we learn from working parents how they're able to balance it all and still thrive. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Anyway, on to the show. Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents podcast, the podcast where we talk to successful working parents. My guest today, she's the founder of Chief Mama Officer, mother of two. Ladies and gentlemen, Jennie Yang. Jennie, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Anthony. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you today. So if you would please just share a little bit about your career.
Yes, so I have an extremely non-linear background. I spent most of my entire career partnering with executives at tech startups, scale-ups, Fortune 500 companies. I've been a strategic operator for the most part across roles in customer success and management consulting, and most recently, human resources and people operations. And so I was an HR executive and operator at a VC-backed startup. And additionally, 7 years ago, I received a coaching certification. I studied with NLP Marin, NLP standing for Neuro Linguistic Programming. And so that was the beginning of my career as a coach 7 years ago. I started my own coaching practice on the side of my work as, a customer success and HR professional. And it was truly my passion. I always infused a lot of coaching into my work with my teams as an HR leader and customer success leader. And really enjoy helping people grow and thrive, which is ultimately what got me into HR was how might I help people grow and develop at scale. So here I am, and I'm a full-time founder and executive coach, and also founder of a community called Chief Mama Officer. It's for founder and executive moms of young children, for those who are expecting as well as planning to start a family. It's an area that I feel strongly passionate about, supporting this intersection of women thriving in their careers as well as at home.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about why you decided to start Chief Mama Officer.
Yes. So this literally it's the end of October that we're talking. And this was at the beginning of October. So just a month ago, I realized that I didn't necessarily felt like I belonged to any one specific community. So it was in search of belonging to a group of people who I felt that my identity aligned with. And so, I'm a part of a few other virtual communities, and there's a part of my identity that matches with that community. However, I thought about, okay, if I were to surround myself with like-minded and like-hearted people, who might they be? Okay, who am I? I'm a founder, currently a new founder, first-time founder, and historically have been an executive and leader. So if I merge these two, and additionally for women who have children, young children specifically under the ages of 6. I have two kids, a 4-year-old and a 6-month-old. And so there's just so much going on in these early years that require our full attention for our children. And also because, being a one-woman show, a founder, or running a small team, or being an executive, you're also running a business. And so there's a lot at stake here and a lot of responsibility. And how do we really integrate both of those identities? And so that was something that I was looking for and did market research, didn't necessarily see it out there. So figured I would create it myself.
Yeah. So, and I think this is always a great idea because people will start something because it's something that they think is missing or something that they wish that they had at the time, right? And so you wish that you had a resource like this when you first became a working mom. So what is missing, or what do you think that this is helping to fill?
Yeah. So, yes. And to your point, this was something that I wish I had. Um, 4 years ago, when I was getting ready to have my first, going out on leave, coming back to leave, I actually was promoted to my first executive role when I returned back from leave, gratefully. And it was wild. The ramp up into not only, continuing on the new motherhood journey, it was also the ramp up into becoming an executive and, exuding all of the skills and competencies of an executive and driving results and having more responsibility. And so, to your point, it was something that I needed personally 4 years ago. And so, ultimately, what was missing that I felt like was, and what has been missing is the depth of authentic connection and heart in the dialogue. I noticed that many communities, they scale really fast. And so there's a lot of people in there. And then my personal experience has been that conversations then become surface level versus getting to the depth of what is it that we're truly struggling with, and how can we as a community support one another with those struggles?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm in, random like Facebook groups and things like that. And they could just be like huge groups where people are sort of just like talking into the void. So it sounds like this is meant to be a little more curated and intentional with who's in it.
That's right. And what I also noticed, as a millennial, I have noticed that there are a lot of influencers, mom influencers out there on social media. And a lot of the time, I notice the content is around, I would say, a lot of the material aspects of motherhood, and meaning like, okay, great. Like, here's some maternity clothes, or, here are the toys, or, here are the products, right?
Mm,
And what Chief Mama Officer really wants to augment to those mom influencers, because they're great. I follow them and I love them, is the actual psychological aspect of being a mother. So, how might I support executive moms through the emotional aspects of being a mother, which, we are guided by our hormones throughout, pregnancy and postpartum and beyond. And so, really providing a bit more support on the emotional side.
So you were working, right? You were employed when you decided to launch this, right? So you essentially just chose to walk away from your career and do this.
Yes. So, I actually was on maternity leave earlier this year. As I mentioned, it's the end of October, and it was the end of August, and I was supposed to go back to my HR executive role. And I had this moment where I realized that my strengths did not align to the HR role, and it was not serving me at all. Like, I did not actually thrive in that role. And I had every intention of going back. I even thought through different scenarios, how might I contribute to our mission and have an impact with my skills and competencies in a different role. And when I tried that on, I realized that I can't do this anymore, basically, given that I needed flexibility. I wanted more flexibility with my second child. I valued flexibility. I didn't realize how important it was to me until I had my second child. And so, visualizing and embodying, okay, going back to a back-to-back meeting, 9 to 5 schedule, was really daunting. And
Hmm.
so, and I, imagined it would lead to burnout again. And so, therefore, I had the privilege to connect with my manager, who was a CEO, and basically say, hey, I'm all in to continue to advise this company. And we made an agreement that I'm advising the company. And yes, and after that agreement, it got very clear to me in October that I wanted to create this community.
Now, is it something about having a second kid? I only have one. I actually know multiple women who really drastically changed their career or stepped away from their career or did something really differently after having that second kid. So was there something about that made you think differently than you did after your first child?
Yes, it's interesting, Anthony. I've been wanting to unpack this a bit more and have a little bit of space. I think over time the insights will arise.
Hmm.
I
Well, here's your chance to unpack it
Yeah,
right now.
totally, totally. I actually was talking to my husband about this the other night, and we were thinking through what's the difference between, having one versus two right now. Well, really, we like to call it's one-on-one man and woman defense right now, versus before you had two-on-one. You could do zone defense, and so right now, it's in terms of, if you think about our capacity being a cup, right? It's our capacity is basically being drawn in different directions with work. Like literally, my husband is the primary now for our 4-year-old, and I'm the primary for our 6-month-old, right? Whereas before, we could divide. I hate to say divide and conquer, but really we could
Yeah.
divide our attention with our 4-year-old, like one at a time. And so we would have more time and space for our own selves. And so now it's more, when I think about the division of like where our cup is flowing, it is, home responsibilities, it's our children, our each individual child as a responsibility, our own selves, as well as work. And so it's stretching us a bit more than having one child. And then I do also wonder, I haven't looked into, the research or the science behind this, but I do also wonder if there is biologically something that happens after the second child as well. Because to your point, I have talked to a lot of moms, and there is this extremely insightful aha moment of like, I need more flexibility.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's biological versus intellectual. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
Yeah. I think just a lot of my friends have two kids, and I think it's just something about that jump just really alters your lifestyle in a way that having one kid, while it is life changing, I think it's just more manageable, right? And so it's probably, I think there's definitely something there where your responsibility really increases, your time gets stretched more thin, and I think it really makes you really really consider your career in a way that maybe your first kid doesn't.
Yes, yes. And the other piece that's coming up in response to that is, especially in the early years, when you have young children, it's like they might need to be in different places. And so, my 4-year-old son's in preschool, and gratefully, we are able to have a nanny for my 6-month-old. Whereas, other families that I've connected with, they have their kids in a preschool and their baby in a daycare, right? And so
Right.
there's, a lot of logistics to manage, and
Yeah.
therefore time.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, was it scary? Like, what was it like, kind of deciding, hey, you know what, I'm going to step away from this career and just do this full time?
Oh my goodness, it was so scary. So the other
Did you
insight
did you
that I
test the
had,
waters at all, or did you just kind of go
mm,
for it?
I just went for it, honestly. I this the time that at the end of August, when I was reflecting on what do I do here, right? And what I also realized, this was an extremely deep insight that I had, was okay, like what has me continue down this path of corporate roles and wanting to, be ambitious and, climb the ladder in corporate
Mhm.
and startup world. And, I really compared and contrast that path with the path of being an entrepreneur, which is not a path that I have taken before. And I realized that the path of, you know, rising in the ranks of corporate was extremely safe and extremely secure. It was guaranteed, like, hey, Jenny, you're going to have an income with benefits and all that. And even still, especially in the tech industry, that's not guaranteed with what we've seen across the past 2 years with increasing layoffs. However, that to me, in my um, operating system, it was extremely safe and secure, whereas the path of entrepreneurship was extremely risky. Hey, like, what are you doing? Shattering the entire foundation of what you've built to pursue your dreams and passions. And when I had that realization, it became very clear that I needed to do the thing that felt risky for my own growth,
Yeah.
honestly. And it's been interesting, to say the least, on a daily basis, to notice
Sure.
where the mind goes, and also
Yeah.
to tap into the mindset and what happens when you become the founder and owner of a business.
Right.
The sense of responsibility significantly increases when it comes to, this is actually a manifestation of, a baby, and you're fully responsible for it, versus, even being an executive on, a team of a company. It's very different. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I saw there was seems like there's kind of three main tenets of chief mom officer: lead with presence, experience joy, and balance what matters. I don't know, is
Yes.
that accurate?
Yes.
And so yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you came to those three and what they mean to you.
Yes. And so, a fun fact that I shared with you the other day is that I was a meditation teacher around the time that I started my coaching practice. I
Yeah.
also decided to guide students in meditation in a meditation studio in San Francisco. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, I started doing virtual sessions as well. And so, presence has been this core tenet of mine in life and work, and bringing in every interaction with someone else full presence. Whether it's a coworker, whether it's a team member, or an executive, or if it's a client, or if it's a child, a friend, how might I be completely present in the moment with them? It's not something that I was really good at all, in my 20s, and it's something that I highly value. And I also have to share that I have my husband to really, I admire his ability to be present. And so it's something that he has held me accountable to across the years. If he's noticing while I'm thinking, while he's talking to me, he'll call me out, right? He'll hold me accountable. And it's just this skill and competency that I believe leads to more connection between humans. It leads to better listening. It leads to better rapport. And so, how might all of us, basically create a better relationship with the thoughts in our minds? It also, creates, better well being for our own selves and our relationship to our internal dialogue. And so, really, this tenet is about how might we equip mothers to be present with both their families as well as work.
Right. I'm sure being present is also helpful when you're battling the resistance and the fear and the ups and downs of leaving corporate world and starting your own company.
That's right. That's right. Because you can easily fall back into your old patterns.
Yeah.
Like, if I hadn't had awareness of that fear of stepping away from corporate, I would have chosen that path.
So balancing what matters, and I think I talk a lot about work life balance on this show, and so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, so what? Well, what does matter? He's balancing. I thought that was an interesting way to say balancing what matters. Like, hey, what does matter, and how do you balance them?
Yes, and I think that depends on the person, right, and what their specific values and what they prioritize. Like, what I'm getting at here is, it's a practice of prioritization in the moment, right? And that's going back to the present. And so, when I think about, we might have this scenario where, I'll give one very specific example where I was on an executive team meeting call, and my son had a fever. He was homesick from preschool. And so, here he is, and he's, coming in and, sitting on my lap, and he clearly is not feeling well. And in this moment, I have a choice. I'm like, can I either, you know, just leave the meeting and take care of him, or, can I just have him sit on my lap and be present in the meeting? And, really, I ultimately decided that. I was like, I'm going to sit here in the meeting and just have him on my lap. And it's okay that he's here. I'm grateful that my team, just, was okay with him being there with us. But in the moment, there's decisions that we have to make when, I personally want to be there for my child and, be that anchor of comfort for him when he's struggling, and be present with work. There's definitely ways in which I could have delegated and like send the child off to dad or whomever. And that said, I really believe it's just the practice of prioritization in the moment based on what needs are needed most.
So prioritization is a big part of kind of the balancing act. What else do you think is important when people ask you about work-life balance? Like, what else do you suggest?
Yeah, I think the other piece of that too is getting clearer on what is sacred, meaning what are times of days that are off limits. So, as an example for me, dinner time, bedtime, and weekends, I keep sacred. As in, like, I do not have my phone around at the dinner table. Bedtime is bedtime, right? For the 4-year old, it's books and laying down together, and with the 6-month old, it's rocking her to sleep and walking
A little more
around,
chaos.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like being totally present then, and also weekends. I think what's also helped with my own personal thriving through this journey of mamahood and executivehood is like really being present with the family on weekends and getting outside, being out in nature to reset the nervous system. And so getting clear on what is sacred so that you hold boundaries around those specific times. The other piece too for me is getting clear on what physiological needs you need to prioritize, like sleep, right? Like underline everything that underlies like your ability to show up and be there fully, is sleep, which is really challenging, right, when you have a newborn.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get to sleep right when you have a kid, it really almost anything is manageable when you're sleeping well, and most things are not if you're not sleeping. So that's definitely key.
Hmm.
Do you have any other tips for self care?
mm, that's that's a great question. Yeah, I definitely believe that sleep is critical. Um, I will say for in the newborn phase that making sure that you you know clean yourself. I do remember the first kid around that there were not many showers that happened, and so
Yeah.
just because it was just this wild ramp up, and so basically just making sure you bake in time, or you know your partner, if you have one, really is able to, take the child when you need to get your own needs taken care of. Something else from a self care perspective that I am a huge fan of, is being able to get body work done. And so I prioritize and invest in getting a monthly massage. We hold so much tension in our bodies,
Yeah.
um, as our kids grow up, picking them up all the time, as with work, like bearing the weight on our shoulders. And so if when we get body work done, right, we're able to get that tension out of our muscles. And I even noticed this time around with my second that my 6-month old, that if I'm holding her for a really long time, I might actually get tension headaches because a lot of the muscles get really tense in the neck and shoulders. And so it's just a matter of, working those out, and just, making sure like you move your body, right. And getting in walks and being able to get stuck energy out of your body.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I feel like it's so easy to let your own self care go and prioritize other things once you have kids. But the more you can take better care of yourself, I think the more you're better able to take care of your kids and your
Hmm.
family.
That's right. That's right.
What other secrets do you have for busy working parents?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the pillar of experiencing joy.
Hmm.
One of my mentors reframed joy as your job, excuse me, your job, as your joy of being, and I that has stuck with me ever since.
Mm.
And I love that because you know that it goes back to the pillar of presence where we can access so much more of our full self and emotion when we are present and be able to experience that joy with our children in those moments where they're learning and growing and picking up skills like every day and every
Yeah.
week. I think the other aspect of it on the work side is being able to really savor the highlights, right? And the wins, because it's like once you hit that milestone, then it's like, okay, what's next? Like, what's the next
Yeah,
milestone?
I know.
Like how you immediately pivot to what needs to get done next, right?
Yeah.
And so just really taking those um moments in and savoring them and cherishing them, so that those that feeling state lasts. And of course, every like feeling states are extremely ephemeral, right? And it's just a matter of being able to access the joy when we are experiencing stress in work and with kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like experiencing joy and being present are really interconnected and
Hmm.
really, complement each other well. And usually, if you can find one, you can then hopefully find the other. So, for anyone listening that is interested in Chief Mama Officer, like how are you helping, or how is Chief Mama Officer helping cultivate those three things?
Yes. So we have monthly learning workshops that are expert led. We also have um, a community of like minded and like hearted women. We basically communicate with one another in a platform, a community platform. And then we also have monthly, what I'm calling curated connection sessions. And so they're basically sessions where I prepare a few questions for the mamas to go through, and everyone gets their turn to share, and it's intended to be a space for authentic dialogue and really get to the core of our challenges and pain points, and also share resources and advice for one another. The other aspect I'm offering is a one on one coaching session with me. And so being able to get to what's at top of mind and heart for each member, and access to various perks, as well as like corporate sponsorships, discounts on various corporate offerings. I'm calling this the village, and so it takes a village to raise a children and a business. And so how might we support our mamas with various offerings from family tech, parent tech, fem tech, um, companies. So I'm really excited as that's coming together. And then lastly, I am putting an on-demand library of meditation sessions, very brief, like 3 minutes,
Okay.
right? Because we don't have a lot of time.
Love it.
So yeah, that's part of that's the whole offering.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to move into the final segment called Jenny's Advice Corner. So I'm going to ask you for some advice on a few topics. You ready?
Sure.
What is your biggest piece of advice for a working parent?
Honestly, it's okay to ask for help. I did not have this skill or permission the first time around. I had an extremely hard time asking for help. And, I believe sometimes, whether it is by heritage or culture or how you're raised, it's like, I can do everything myself. Like, I've got this. Right. I have Google to help me here. We didn't have Chat GPT back then, when my first was born, but, but really it was, building this muscle of it being okay to ask for help. I did it more the second time around with my 6-month-old, and it was game changing. I literally, typed up this Google Doc of how you can support me postpartum, and, how you can support around the house, and how you can support with, my baby's needs. And so
Mm,
it was
I like
very
that.
clear about expectations and
Yeah.
and making them into agreements.
Yeah.
So
That's a great
yeah,
idea.
yeah, asking for help.
Awesome. What advice do you have for somebody that is trying to get into meditation, but just hasn't been working for them?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different entry points here. And so many apps out there, Headspace, Calm, and honestly, it's literally taking 30 seconds to just focus on your breath. I find that to be the easiest way when you find a somatic anchor of, honing in on your breath, honing in on how your breath is moving through your body, or through your nose, getting in touch with the sensations. And perhaps we could test it out right here with the audience.
Let's do it.
Okay, sure. So why don't you take this time as you're listening to this podcast to settle into your body and put your feet flat on the ground, and sitting upright with a straight spine, and shrugging your shoulders up to your ears and down your back, and allowing yourself to take the deepest breath you've taken all day. And just inviting us to take another breath together, and just putting your attention on your breath. Noticing the rise and fall of your chest, and one more together. And now wiggling your fingers and your toes, and opening up your eyes if you close them, and coming back to the present moment. And so I'm
Love it.
curious how you're feeling
Love
after
it.
after just, 30 to 60 seconds of taking a few breaths together.
Yeah, no, that was great. I mean, as I mentioned, I'm a big meditator myself, and it's sometimes you forget how helpful it is just to take a few breaths, and as soon as you said like take the deepest breath you've had today, I was like, oh, I really need to take one. So it was that was great, and first time we
Yes.
meditated on the podcast, so I appreciate that.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're constantly in go, go, go mode. And, we thought we were in go, go, go mode with work until we have kids.
yeah, yeah,
And then you're chasing after them, right? And taking
yeah,
care of their needs. So
yeah. Okay, what is the best advice you've ever received?
that is a great question. And honestly, this is, a narrative that I have been crafting for myself over the years. It's been a work in progress. You are enough. And just saying, I've had a couple of mentors mirror that for me and repeat that back to me, like, you are enough. And I think that's especially, as an ambitious professional, right? There's a lot of experience of like comparison of like, oh, I need to get to the next level, or, the next role and the next raise and all of this. And really at the end of the day, like, you are enough for just being here on this planet as a human. Like, you are enough.
Yeah,
And then, same applies when you become a parent, because there is so much social media about how to parent, and this image of parenting, that it's just like, you are enough with, however you are approaching parenthood.
love it. What advice would you give to your former self?
Yeah, definitely that as well. Um, yeah, if I go back to thinking through my first kiddo, Yeah, I would give myself permission to pause, meaning that, I noticed my pattern with the first kiddo was, I was constantly thinking about work when I was with him. And again, this goes back to presence and all that, and giving myself permission to pause, that like it is appropriate to turn off the work file on the
Yeah.
brain. Like
Yeah.
it is totally okay, right? And was able to set those boundaries by not looking at Slack in the evening hours. And I think really it is permission to pause, specifically with work.
Okay. Last question. By the time this episode comes out, my daughter will be probably 16 months old. So, what advice do you have for me as a father of a 16-month-old daughter?
Yeah, I would say, um, mm, yeah, I would just say, allow her to be a teacher for you, right? Allow her to be this mirror for you of, noticing like if there are any triggers that arise, because this is when, 16 months is when they're walking
Yeah.
and talking and starting to get their sense of authority and control, and getting into that, toddler and two phase. And honestly, the terrible twos are not that bad. No one told me about three-nager.
I've been
So
hearing about that lately,
just saying
actually.
anyway.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, there's moments for when they are incredible teachers, of showing what triggers might arise for us as parents, and just holding space for that, and being able to, have a communication and open dialogue with our own selves in those moments.
That's really good. I haven't heard that one before, so I really appreciate that one.
Mhm.
Well, Jenny, this has been a really great conversation. Where can people go to connect with you or learn more about you or anything that you'd like to share?
Yes, yes. So you can find Chief Mama Officer at www.chiefmamaofficer.com. And that is, Mama is MAMA.
I
And
can't believe that wasn't taken.
I know.
When you were probably like, "Oh, this is great." When you Googled it for the first time, you were like, "Oh, sick."
Well, ironically, I also didn't realize that people spell mama Momma, and it's,
Oh,
yeah,
that's true.
totally a valid spelling as well. And
Right.
so, in any case, you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm Jennie, Jennie Yang, Yang. And I'm also on Instagram as well. So, and if you would like to reach out to me directly, my email is Jennie, Jennie at chiefmamaofficer.com.
Awesome. I'll be sure to link to all that in the show notes.
Fantastic.
Jenny Yang, ladies and gentlemen. Jenny, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Anthony. It's been a pleasure.